Hey everyone, we are going to go over the bones of the wrist and bones of the hand. This is chapter 8, starting on slide 8. Really, this is the only slide, but we're going to do more stuff in complete anatomy. Starting with the carpal bones, carpal means wrist. There are 8 of them. So this is going to be fun to remember. There are 8 carpal bones, roughly in 2 rows of 4. So if you look down here, we're looking at the left hand anterior view. So it's like you're looking at your palm, left hand anterior view. I'm looking at it right there. We can see that there is one, I should just write it in numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are small bones. They're categorized as those small bones because need high range of movement. Makes sense. I'm not going to test you I'm not going to pull out one bone and make you identify that one bone. It'll always be in the context of the whole hand with the wrist. So rest assured, you won't have to memorize it to that extent, but you should know which one is which if I do give you the whole hand and wrist. We'll take a look at a way to remember that. And we'll name them we'll name all of them in a second. The bones of the hand, well, before we get to the fingers, before you have bones in the palm, the bones in your palm are called metacarpals. When we get to the bones of the palm, as well as your fingers, we give them a numbering convention. Your thumb is numbered 1, which I'm going to give Roman numeral 1. And if you remember, the name for thumb is pollex. This is your pollex, and your metacarpal is number 1 also. Pollex for the thumb and number 1 pollex for the metacarpal. Number 2 is the index. Also, this is your second metacarpal. Number 3 is the middle. Also, this is your third metacarpal. 4 is your ring, 4th metacarpal. 5th is your pinky, 5th metacarpal. If you're not familiar with Roman numerals, for now you need to know 1 through 5. We will need to get to 12 when we get to cranial nerves. But just 1 eye is 1, 2 eyes is 2, 3 eyes is 3. 4 is weird. It's a 1 and a V. V is 5. So it's 1 before 5, it's 4. So IV is 4. And then V is just 5. That's the numbering system. When you look at, the metacarpals are the ones in your palm. Your actual fingers, ones that you can move, those are, or move easily, I should say, those are your phalanges. Phalanges or digits, but I'm going to call them phalanges. Phalanges is plural. If you're referring to just one finger, it's phalanx. Phalanx, it's a weird conjugation, weird singular plural form in Latin or Greek, one of those. Your pollex, this phalanx, your pollex only has 2 parts, a distal and a proximal phalanx. So there's a distal phalanx 1 and a proximal phalanx 1 and a metacarpal 1. For the other 4, there are 3. There's distal, middle, and proximal. So you can see how there ends up being a ton of appendages, a ton of bones in the appendages because there are so many small ones and they're named with this naming convention. Distal phalanx number 2, middle phalanx number 2, proximal phalanx number 2, metacarpal 2. Distal phalanx 3, middle phalanx 3, proximal phalanx 3, metacarpal 3, and so on. For your pollex, you could call it proximal phalanx 1 or proximal proximal phalanx of the pollex, either way. This will all make more sense when let's take a look at complete anatomy, and also make more sense when you see it in person. We are looking at anterior view, right side this time. Let's go over the fingers and metacarpals first, and then we'll go back up to the carpals because those are a little trickier. Over here, we have our metacarpals. Metacarpal 1, metacarpal 2, metacarpal 3, metacarpal 4, metacarpal 5. This, and here too, these are proximal phalanges. Proximal phalanx 1, proximal phalanx 2, proximal phalanx 3, 4, 5. There's only a distal one for the pollex. And then you have distal over here for the rest. But here, for 2 through 4, you have middle phalanges. Clearing this, going closer to the wrist. Once again, we're in an anterior view. Those rows are not perfect. You can see here, I don't know how well you can see here, but there's one bone here, another here, another here, part of it's hiding, and then another here. This is our proximal row. I'm going to go from the blue to the green. The blue is the scaphoid. The yellow one I'm blanking. The yellow one is the lunate. There we go. The pink one is called triquetrum. It's my favorite word there. The green one is called the pisiform. These are some really funny names for these carpal bones, and that's just the proximal row. The distal row, let's come back to the lateral side. So this is lateral over here. There's one hiding a little bit here. There's a big one here. And then another big one here. So there's our 4 on the distal end. The one in the dark red, most lateral, is trapezium. The one in orange next to it is trapezoid. The red one is capitate. And then the blue one is hamate. All right, so here are some ways to remember all these different carpal bones. There's 3 T's here, so that can be confusing. The triquetrum in the way that we're numbering them, the way that we're ordering them, which is completely arbitrary, but it's the third one. Tri is the third one in the row. Scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum. But then what about trapezium and trapezoid? Your thumb is right here. Trapezium is by the thumb. And then trapezoid is left over. Besides that, I can give you a mnemonic. It's kind of dirty, but the dirtier, I guess, the easier it is to remember. So read along. But you can make your own mnemonic as long as it's memorable. That's a whole point of a memory device. As long as it has an SLTPTTCH, then it can make sense. I still have to do this sometimes because I forget the order. It's just an easy way to remember it since they're all so small. But the scaphoid is on the thumb side. So you want to start on the thumb side and then go lateral. Or sorry, medial, I should say. Start on the thumb side and go medial. And scaphoid is proximal, and then you go from lateral to medial, and then go back lateral again, but on the distal end, that's where you'd find the trapezium. Trapezium is directly bordering the thumb, and go medial again. Scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum, pisiform, trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, hamate. Another thing I want to point out, I'm going to clear this. Notice again how it's not perfect rows. The reason why it's not perfect rows is because there's curvature here. Look at the curvature of these bones. We're looking from an inferior view. On the phalanges, whoops. On the phalanges, there's curvature. On the palmar side, there's curvature on the palmar side. It's not true on the other side, on the dorsal side. If you rest your palm flat on a table, at rest, there's a little bit of curvature, in part because of the muscle, but also because of the bone. There's even curvature here where your wrist is, where your carpal bones are. The term for this curvature in the bone, in the carpal area, this is called your carpal tunnel. Do you see how there's like a passageway here? That's the carpal tunnel. Curvature provides strength. There's a lot of strength in this shape. The downside is, in this modern world, is that when we press on this carpal tunnel, we also press on the tendons and on the nerves that are in here. We have a median nerve here, and if we compress it for extended periods of time, we can damage our nerve, we can damage the tendons here, and that leads to carpal tunnel syndrome. So take breaks from typing because it presses on your wrists on that portion, or take breaks when you're doing repetitive motions. I had a friend who got carpal tunnel syndrome from working as I forgot what the term is, but worked in a kitchen and chopped a lot for a really long time. So repetitive motions, take breaks. That is the hand. Those are bones of the hand. And that's the arm and pectoral girdle. In the next set of videos, we'll go over the pelvic girdle and the legs. Let me know if you have questions. See you in a bit.